Chapter 13. The One in Charge. Simon stood in silence for several moments, which felt like an eternity, still trying to process the loss of his friend. He said a silent prayer for James, and then looked towards the door forward. He resolved himself to keep pressing onward, now also for the sake of his friend he just lost. He kept James's final words to him before his death in his heart. After after spending another few minutes gathering the courage to move forward, Simon finally opened the door before him and stepped through it. As many times previously, the door opened to a passageway, though, in this case, there was a single door only a short distance away from him. On the door were the words, "The Master's Chamber." Simon stood before this door, reflecting on all that he had faced in this battle since it began, knowing that this will all end one way or another after passing through this door. Then, as he began to wonder what had happened to his other friends that were with him, he heard the sound of people running, coming from his right side. He turned and saw that there was an intersecting hallway near the location of the door before him. He saw that 7 familiar figures were running towards him. "Simon!" Anthony called as he ran towards him. "It is Simon!" said Dan as he ran towards him. "You made it through all the trials," Dave added. "But what happened to that guy, James, who was with you?" Simon looked down with an expression of grief and said, James was my opponent in the seventh trial. I defeated him in a sword duel where the loser sinks into a dark pit for all eternity. But he was baptized for the remission of sins before he died, and he won't have to spend eternity alive in that pit since he died in a motorcycle explosion when he carried me out of the pit.
I'm so sorry, Simon.
Asa told him, trying to comfort him. He didn't even know, Simon replied. He told me that Saul wiped his memory before he sent him to come get me. After a few silent, solemn moments, Harold asked, "So is this the way to where the guy in charge is? Also, who's Saul?" Saul, according to James, is our enemy's real name, Simon replied. Hang on, close this.
Well, considering the words the master's chamber is on the door, and the fact that there are no other doors forward around, this must be it.
Jenna added. "Hey, Simon, guess what?" Anthony interjected. "What? I have a new soul sword," Anthony replied. "It's called the Sword of Restored Hope. It turns damaging effects into life gain effects and has another ability that restores the users and their allies' health to half if below half when first summoned." "It's true. You saved our lives with that sword," Dave added. "And my sword apparently can evolve into a greater sword if I resonate it with my soul." "That's awesome," Simon replied.
Yes, that's great.
Asia interjected.
But we need to hurry to stop Saul from succeeding in his plan for this portal.
At that, they opened the door forward and entered the room beyond. Inside was what looked like the ruins of a great throne room. As Simon analyzed the room, he could not help but feel an air of familiarity about it, as though he had seen it before. The marble floor was a deep blue color, though little of it could be seen beneath the debris that was littered across the floor. In many places, there were deep cuts in the floor. It looked as though a great battle had taken place in this room. Towards the back of the room was a large open area with nothing but a throne, occupied by a hooded figure. By the hooded figure that had spoken to them several times during the trials. He did not rise from his throne when he saw that Simon and his friends had arrived.
Welcome, Simon Petrus and friends. You have done well to have surpassed all 7 trials. I commend you for your efforts. I know why you are here, but I tell you that you cannot stop what is about to come to pass. Though powerful you have proven yourself to be through these trials, you still lack the power to stop this calamity from occurring. It is a necessary calamity for the good of the multiverse.
Go to the multiverse, came a voice of skepticism from the far left side of the great throne room. I wonder about that. Tell them all about what you're planning to do here, and enlighten us on how it is good for the multiverse. Simon and several other of his friends turned towards the direction from which the skeptical voice came. Bartemius! Anthony exclaimed when he saw him standing by a side door into the throne room. Bartemius? Simon repeated. As in the father of Galacticus and Caractacus?
Ah, yes, the defector who likes to do what he pleases, rather than follow orders. Shall you continue to disobey me? Anyway, you are correct that I should explain what will happen here before your lives are brought to an end. As I am sure you are aware, your universe is infested with corruption, and one day you shall spread that corruption to the rest of the multiverse, which will cause creatures similar to those you faced on the way into this portal, known as space demons, to appear and destroy all life in the multiverse. They feed off the wickedness and corruption. This portal is a space-time portal. On one end is the point in which these creatures first appeared, and on the other end, once it is completed, shall be here tonight at midnight.
Saul explained. Doing this will save the.
Doing this will save the rest of the multiverse from being corrupted by your kind. It is fortunate for the rest of the multiverse that you have not yet found the technology to travel to other universes.
That is where you're wrong, Saul, Bartemius argued. My battle with that young boy who is Simon's brother showed me that there is still reason to hope in the people of this universe. Not everyone here seeks to do evil to others. Not everyone here is as selfish and corrupt as you believe them to be. I can show you the power of my restored hope by challenging you to a sword battle.
You wish to challenge me? Very well. It seems I will have to squash this false sense of hope you are feeling, and remind you of the inevitability of what is to come.
Saul replied, continuing to sit on his throne. 10-section health bars appeared above Artemius and Saul. Artemius summoned a purple-colored, two-headed sword with jagged edges on its blades, a sword other than the sword of despair that he used against Dave, Jenna, and Anthony. The sword was the sword of Reckoning, attack power 3, durability 2. Bartemius charged at Saul with his sword, yet Saul did not react or attempt to prepare to dodge the attack. Simon was able to catch a glimpse of Saul's face beneath the hood. It was the face of a skull, with not even the slightest indication of life in the eye sockets. He simply raised what looked like a black bead before him, and when Bartemius was only a few feet from Saul, he seemed to collide with an invisible barrier and was thrown backward onto his back. Bartemius' health points 10 to 7. What? What was that? Asked Bartemius as he got back to his feet.
I used one of my beads of destruction, the bead of reflection. When the user is attacked, this bead generates a force field that protects the user from damage, and then inflicts damage to that attacker, equal to the attack power of the weapon they're using.
Saul explained. Beads of destruction? Simon repeated questioningly. Like my beads of protection?
Precisely, though mine can have more devastating effects.
Saul replied.
Now allow me to respond to your attack in kind. Manifest, Scythe of Adaptability, in the form of the Scythe of Reset.
A queer sphere of light came from Saul's chest, traveled to his right hand, and then took on the form of a white, transparent scythe, which then changed it to a transparent red. Attack power 0, durability 0. A weapon with 0 attack power and 0 durability? Dan exclaimed. Don't be fooled, Bartemius said. This is one of his most powerful weapons. Then Saul stood up from his throne and flew towards Bartemius with his scythe and swung it towards him. The scythe passed right through Bartemius's body like a ghost would, but as it did so, he gave a cry of excruciating pain. After that was over, a projection of a clock with hands appeared between Bartemius and Saul, and the hands began to move counterclockwise. As they did so, Bartemius's sword faded away. What happened to my sword? Yes, Saul.
My Scythe of Reset battles with an opponent's armament. It rewinds time to before that armament was summoned, and you take damage equal to its attack power.
Saul replied. Bartemius cried in pain again as his health dropped by 3 sections, HP 7 to 4. You may have knocked me down again, but I am not out, Bartemius said as he manifested a royal blue crystal sword, the Sword of Redemption, attack power 3, durability 2.
Seems you will not learn. Fortunately, for you, these Scythe forms cannot stay among us permanently. They be summoned for a brief period of time, but then return to whence they came, and the Scythe of Reset's time has just expired. However, unfortunately for you, I have many other forms that can be made manifest. Manifest! Scythe of Incineration. Attack power 0, durability 0.
Saul said as his transparent scythe turned to a fire orange color, and once again he flew towards Bartemius with this scythe form and attacked him with it. But Bartemius again cried in pain as the scythe passed through him. Then, when he thought the worst of it was over, a ring of fire appeared around Bartemius's feet, and the flames rose until they completely engulfed him, and he cried in pain as his life slowly dropped. 4 to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1. As Bartemius fell to his knees, a small object fell out of his armor, which he also noticed as it hit the floor. It was some kind of necklace with a red charm in the shape of a heart on it. Bartemius picked it up and got to his feet.
Scythe of Incineration deals continuous damage over time, taking one health section at a time after the attack power of its opponent's armament. Saul explained.
Bartemius closed his eyes and smirked, and said, "Thank you for granting me a path to victory."
Oh,
Your last attack reminded me that I have this special item that will bring me victory now. I had forgotten about it until that last attack made it fall out of my armor. It is the last gift my wife gave me before she died. Our heart of last hope, Bartemius told Saul.
you should know that my Scythe of Incineration has another ability. Once per projection, when my opponent uses a non-armament ability, that opponent loses one health section, which means you lose.
Saul told Bartemius. Wrong! This charm is a symbol of mine and my late wife's determination to achieve our hopes and dreams. It stops any other effects from triggering until a coin is flipped. If it lands on heads, if my health is lower than yours, you take damage equal to the product of our health levels, which in this case will be 10, meaning you would lose. However, if it is tails, your effect triggers normally. Bartemius replied.
It all comes down to a coin toss.
That's all.
Let's see who is fated to win this battle.
Bartemius flipped the coin and made ready to catch it and place it on his arm, which was his method of coin flipping. But as he tried to catch the coin, his ankle failed him, and the coin hit the ground. An expression of deep despair was across Bartemius's face, which meant that the coin did not land on heads. He then fell to his knees, apparently frozen in despair over the result.
By the look of despair on your face, it seems you did not receive the result of the coin toss, which you were hoping. That is a mistake of having hope. It opens the door for the possibility of tragedy and despair. Since your effect failed, the effect of my scythe of incineration triggers normally, taking your last health section.
Bartemius, HP 1 to 0. Saul reminded him. Flames again engulfed Bartemius, but he did not cry in pain this time. He simply fell to his back. Simon and Anthony rushed over to him. Bartemius! Anthony cried. Boy, I thank you for giving me a reason to hope again. I am sad that I lost you, but I am also happy that I will soon be with my wife again. And I am glad to know that not everyone in this universe is wicked. You guys make it possible to make our world a better place, which in turn will make the multiverse better. Bartemius said to Anthony, and then he turned to Simon and said, You saw the kind of power Saul wields. You will need something of equal power to stand against him. Here, take this. Bartemius placed his hands over his chest, and a queer sphere, like the one that Saul summoned before, came out of it, and then transformed into a queer, transparent sword. This is the sword of adaptability. It can take on the form and abilities of up to 10 swords programmed into it. And as it is now passing hands, the sword will be reset, and new forms can be programmed onto it. Take it, and do what I could not. Take it, and save your universe. Bring about a better future for the multiverse. Bartemius begged Simon. After that, Bartemius turned to dust and disappeared. Bartemius, said Simon in grief. He then turned to Saul and said, Saul, I challenge you to one final battle. If I win, this all ends.
Very well. There is still some time left. This room is not fit for such a battle. Let us battle in the sky of St. Petersburg, Saul replied. And then the ceiling above them opened to reveal the St. Petersburg sky, which was separated from the city by a transparent barrier.
And then Saul asked,
You do remember how to fly, do you not? The queer dome surrounding the city makes it temporarily into an aggravating realm, meaning that, if your will be strong enough, anything is possible.
just as Simon was about ready to use his power of imagination to fly to meet up with Saul, his friend stopped him to give him support. Simon, Dave said, as he drew the light sphere that was his sword and placed it onto the sword of adaptability, which absorbed it, and said, Take my sword of strength. And my sword of wisdom, Harold said as he put his sphere onto the queer sword.
Take my sword of courage, Simon.
Jay told him as she did the same. And my sword of utility, Dan added as he did the same. Don't forget my sword of restored hope, Anthony added as he added his sword to the sword of adaptability.
Well, my sword of temperance.
Said Jenna as she did the same. After that, Simon then imagined having the power to fly and meet Saul in the air. And while wielding the sword of adaptability, he left the royal blue marble floor and flew up to meet Saul. Saul, I will show you that destroying one universe to save the multiverse is not the answer. I will find a new, better solution and defeat you in this battle.
Do you not know who you are up against? Did you not just witnessed how I defeated Martemius. I summoned my Scythe of Adaptability in the form of the Scythe of Reset.
Attack power 0, durability 0, Saul said, and the transparent red scythe appeared in his right hand. The Scythe of Reset returns any weapon it battles with to where it was summoned from and inflicts damage to the wielder equal to the weapon's attack power. But these scythe forms cannot stay in the field permanently. They return to where they came from after a short period of time. Simon thought to himself, trying to analyze the situation.